Hi there. There are lots of people talking these days, and it seems like fewer people actually listening. That's why active listening is an ever more important skill to cultivate. Seattle-based Improv Alive teaches workshops specifically helping people and groups of people improve their active listening skills. Julian Schrenzel joins me now to tell us more about it. So let's talk first of all about what active listening is. What's the definition?
Sure. So in my field, coming from a acting and improvisation background, active listening is a heck of a lot more than people think. You think of listening as verbally, I'm talking and you're hearing me, but active listening involves your entire body, and it involves your energy, your being. And that is the difference. When you are just listening, a lot of times when people are dialoguing, especially nowadays when people have such specific ways of thinking, we're very polarized, people want to just kind of get their point across. And they're not listening. They're listening for an opening for themselves to further. Whereas active listening is about taking in everything that you're getting and then giving to the other person, making them look good. That's active listening.
Understanding what they're saying and making sure that you've acknowledged it.
Exactly.
Is part of it, right?
Yep.
And I keep thinking about Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, and my favorite one has always been seek to understand before being understood. So part of it isn't just listening, but really trying to understand what the other person is saying. Why is this difficult for us? I mean, you mentioned the polarization, but oftentimes people will say, well, I just want to get my point in.
Right.
And we aren't really taking in what the other person is saying.
Right.
Is that kind of a natural human thing?
It kind of is. And the polarization applies around a lot of, obviously nowadays, a lot of political conversations are very polarized and things. But when you're dealing with like being in a job, where you're working with other teams or your boss or your people you're reporting to or report to you, then it could be a factor of, I don't want to look bad in front of these people, or I don't want to lose my job by messing up.
Or impressed for time, or any
impressed
number
for
of
times.
things.
And then it becomes an issue of fear or an issue of protection, personal protection. All of those things come into factor that kind of shut your brain off from being really, really open and taking in everything you got. Because that's vulnerability, right?
Right. Of course, I hadn't really thought about it that way, and it's great within families as well, you know, for everybody to feel like they're heard and understood is a healthy place for dialogues to take place. So how does improv help you develop these skills?
So in improv, when you're on stage, when you're doing improv, as an improviser, if you are thinking about, I've got to make this really funny line, or I've got to look good, or I've got to make sure the audience is getting their money's worth, you're going to fall flat. But if you're coming out here, you and I are doing an improv, and my sole thing is I'm going to listen to you, and anything that you create in this moment, I'm going to justify that and make you look brilliant. That's going to make you look awesome, and because you're an improviser with me, I know you're doing the same thing for me. And so a team of improvisers all doing that for each other rather than doing it for themselves frees up those resources in their head to allow them to be fully present and be fully listening. And that's what makes great improvisation. It's when everybody is fully 100% for everybody else and not caring about what they're doing.
And if we put that into conversation, then that can be a wonderful exchange. So you have kind of an exercise that we can work on, right? So what do we do? Teach me. Yeah, sure.
Should we stand up?
Yes, we can do whatever you want.
So I'm going to teach you this in 3 cycles. So the first thing we're going to do is we are facing each other face to face. And the cycle is basically do what I'm doing right now. So we're going to hit our knees and then shoot our hands up. And hit your knees, shoot them up. And let's keep doing this for a minute so we get it all in our bodies. Now the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to hit, and now we get the option. This is a choose your own adventure. You can shoot it up, you can shoot it right, or you can shoot it left.
Okay.
Your choice.
My
doing
choice.
it at the same time. You ready? Try it. So now we do it. Ooh, you did a new one. So what if you try, the only options are 1, 2, or 3. So those are your 3, okay?
But I'm choosing, right?
You're choosing, yep. And sometimes we may go together, and sometimes we may not. So now we got that. The third thing we're doing is we're going to do this. And every time that you and I shoot our hands the same direction, be that up, left, or right, the next one we do is a high 10.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay?
All right, let's do it.
Let's give it a shot. So there it is.
I like it. Oh my gosh. How is this making me a better listener?
So the cool thing about that game
Yes.
The cool thing about that game is the minute that you start thinking, oh, I got it. Oh, okay, I got it. Now I'm in a rhythm, is the moment your brain starts to tend to stop being in this present moment.
Got it.
And because
okay.
everything that happens in every single moment of the game requires you to make a decision that might be different than the last time, you always have to be actively making decisions. The minute you start thinking, oh, I'm good at this, or oh, I suck at this, is the moment that you've taken your mind off of the present and you've gone to the past, or you've gone to the future thinking, oh, I'm going to plan this. What if I lead it? Or what if I follow the person? Then you're starting to plan, so you either go to planning forward or judging in the past.
Backwards.
Either way, you leave the present, and then you mess up. So what happens then is people start to not do it right.
No, I could absolutely say that I know what you're talking about, because for a second when I just wasn't paying any attention, everything worked well. I mean, when I wasn't concentrating on what am I doing, how does this look, then you're able to do it. So if we're talking, if I tell you something and you want me to feel heard, how do you respond? What are some of the words we can use that will force us to acknowledge and give back?
Some of those words that could force and that could provide acknowledgement on your side. I use a game oftentimes called the yes and game. And the yes and game is someone says a line, the other person restates that line in their own words and then adds something onto it new. So what you just said to me, I restated what you said. How can I say something that would reinforce and acknowledge what you said? I used the words you used right now that you gave to me, and I restated it, and then I added additional information onto it. So that's a great way, is by when you hear someone say something, take a moment to restate it in your own words back to them.
Okay, so let's practice this.
All right.
Let's pretend we're coworkers.
Cool.
I feel like I'm just under an enormous amount of time pressure.
I understand you really feel stressed about that pressure, don't you?
I do.
Yeah. What do you feel about kind of slowing it down and kind of taking a look at all the options you have on the table? You probably, if I can help you to think of some different options of doing things ways that you haven't done it before, do you think that could help?
I think it could. I'd be open to that.
Yeah. Time management is a great thing.
So part of it is just mirroring the words, as corny as that sounds, just to, almost that old I hear you saying, X, to acknowledge that person before you respond.
It is, but it's not a mirroring of the words, because you can do, I can repeat every word you say without listening to you, but I can't restate what you said in a meaningful way. So it's not a repetition of the words, it's a restatement of the words in your own vocabulary.
In your own vocabulary to show your understanding.
Right.
And does that also help just to slow down the cycle so that you don't kind of get into we're too quickly talking, interrupting, and misunderstanding?
It does. And I can't tell you how many times I have been privy to conversations that have gone so quickly that people don't even have time to really think. And the person being heard, when the dialogue is happening so rapidly in natural conversation, you don't get the feeling that you're really being heard unless you slow it down and just take a moment to really be with that person and think about what they're saying.
Those are such important thoughts. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
We're going to
pleasure.
keep this dialogue going, because I think we can get better at this communication stuff.
Oh,
I
we
know
sure
we
can. Without a doubt. I know we can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Margaret.
Up next, the two-step process to wider smiles. That also could be a conversation starter in just minutes. Back after this.